Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. Thanks for coming out, and I'm really honored to be joined by Senate and House colleagues, all of us together, pushing this no Washington exemption proposal regarding Obamacare. You know, as ordinary Americans deal with the extra cost and burdens and dislocation of Obamacare every day, every powerful group in the country seems to get an exemption, and the latest is Washington, D.C., and we find that the most outrageous and the most offensive. As you know, right as Congress was leaving town for the August recess, OPM, part of the Obama administration, issued a rule and made it up, in my opinion, out of thin air with no statutory basis. And they took all of the sting of Obamacare away from members of Congress and their staff. We're here to say that's outrageous, and Congress and all of Washington should live by the same rules and the same burdens, including under Obamacare, that all of America has to deal with. And that's what our no Washington exemption proposal is all about. So basically that proposal would do three things. First, it would clearly overrule, legislatively repeal this OPM rule. Secondly, it would say that every member of Congress, all the congressional staff, including committee staff, including leadership staff, and the president and vice president and all of their political appointees have to go to the Obamacare exchanges. And third, it would say they would get no fat taxpayer-funded subsidy to follow them there. The only subsidy that any of those folks might qualify for would be subsidies available to all other Americans according to income level. So that's what our proposal is all about. And we strongly believe that Washington should be treated in this, as in everything, just like the rest of America. It's our immediate goal on the House side to try to get this included in the CR. And on the Senate side, Mike and I will be fighting for a vote on this on the Senate floor in any opportunity possible, including the bill that's coming up on the Senate floor next. With that, let me introduce the main House sponsor who's rallied a huge amount of House support, Ron DeSantis of Florida. Ron.
Thanks a lot, Senator. Well, thank you all for coming. I guess we could have had this in Florida. It would have been a little cooler. Geez. You know, I tell my constituents, if you really want to know how Washington works, follow what's going on at the times you're least likely to be engaged, when you're getting ready to go on a 3-day weekend, vacation, or whatnot. And of course, this OPM rule was issued right as Congress is leaving for August. Americans were busy doing all sorts of things over the summer, and it basically represented a bailout for the political class, a bailout under Obamacare that was not authorized by statute. And to me, this is something that is wrong, both because you're giving Congress special treatment, but also because it isn't another example of executive overreach. So I think this issue here is a test for everyone in Washington, but specifically a test for people on the Republican side. Because we have a lot of people who will criticize the president for unilaterally delaying the employer mandate under Obamacare, which they're right to do. You have a lot of people, like including me, who are upset that he may provide special subsidies for unions, some of his main supporters, and they're right to do that. But if you're mad at that executive overreach, you have got to toe the line and be upset when the executive overreaches to benefit members of Congress and staff. This is an eat-your-own-cooking provision. I know a lot of members who passed Obamacare don't like that it's there, but it is the law, and it treats members of Congress and staff exactly the same as the millions of Americans who are going to lose their employer-provided coverage and go onto the Obamacare exchanges. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. We need to stand on principle here and do what's right for the American people. Thank you all again for coming. With that, I will introduce Senator Enzi.
Thank you. Thank you. I've been working on this issue for a long time because I was the ranking member on health, education, labor, and pensions when Obamacare came to that committee. And one of the amendments we tried to get passed in committee was to make all of the members of Congress and the Senate abide by whatever we came up with in the law. That failed on party lines in the Help Committee. I'm also on the Finance Committee. When it went to the Finance Committee, Senator Grassley took the lead on that, tried to get the same amendment through. It failed on party lines. We all continued to promote equal treatment for Congress and the American public and to get the Senate and Congress under the bill. we were successful on the floor. It wound up in there. But this last August, the president finally decided that he had the authority to take that away from us, to remove us, to give us an exemption. Said, no, that's not right. And Senator Vitter was one of the first to pick up on what the president had done and began drafting a bill. I got to help on that and appreciate that. But this one's a slightly different one. This one goes a little bit further than what we did in the bill. And where it goes further is it puts the president and his staff under the bill. Now, you'd think that if a bill is named after you, you'd want to be under it. And so we're hoping the president will take that approach with he and his staff and help us to get this passed so that Congress and the administration have to live under whatever the American people have to live under. In Wyoming, the legislature passes something, it's a part-time legislature, they all have to abide by whatever laws they pass. It really helps if Congress and the Senate and the president and his staff all have to live under the laws that we all help to pass. And that's what this amendment will help to do. So I hope we'll have a lot of support nationwide to force that to happen. We will be trying to get that on as an amendment at every opportunity. And I would expect that my colleagues would think that that was just fair.
Thank you, Dennis Ross from Florida. I want to thank my Senate colleagues for sponsoring this bill in that chamber, and of course my good friend Ron DeSantis and Tom Cotton for introducing it in the House. You know, when we left in August, and OPM, at the direction of this president, made a declaration that the members of Congress and their staff would not be covered by Obamacare in terms of the healthcare exchanges. That was appalling, but it was another example of what I consider to be this imperial presidency where he's trying to rule by fiat executive order. And now he's trying to make members of Congress complicit with this method. It's wrong. The American people know it's wrong. What we pass for the American people, we as members of Congress should be subject to. Passing this bill is the right thing to do. The American people know that. I laud my colleagues for introducing this, and I look forward to advocating its passage. And I'll turn it over to my friend Tom Cotton.
Thank you, Dennis. Thank you all. Tom Cotton from Arkansas 4. We all heard during the August recess from so many Americans whose family have lost their health insurance, had to buy new health insurance. Maybe they've lost their job because an employer is trying to comply with the costs of Obamacare. Or maybe their hours have been reduced, so an employer can get below the threshold to be covered by Obamacare. Nancy Pelosi said when this law was on the verge of passage that we have to pass the law to find out what's in it. Well, that does appear to be the case because Congress couldn't even figure out how the law affected them. That's why they went to Barack Obama 2 months ago and asked for a special sweetheart deal for Washington insiders, for the elected officials and their staffers who know how to work the system. And that's what Barack Obama provided them. And that's what we're standing up today and saying no to. There'll be no special sweetheart deals for Washington, D.C. insiders. If it's good for you, America, then it's good for us right here in Washington, D.C. Now, you don't hear some politicians saying that. Some Washington politicians are saying Obamacare is an amazing success story. Well, it's not surprising they think it's an amazing success story if they don't have to follow the rules of Obamacare. Well, when this law passes, all senators, all representatives, and their staffers, as well as executive branch officials, will have to follow Obamacare, which is exactly as it should be until we can repeal or defund that law. Thank you.